This is a HeadGum podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Jeff Rubin Show. I am Jeff Rubin, here today with Caitlin Elgin and Caroline Weaver of CW Pencil Enterprise, a store in New York that sells nothing but pencils and pencil-related accessories. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi.
And just so we can learn who is who, Caitlin, can you say hi?
Yeah, hi, I'm Caitlin.
And Caitlin, what is your role within this enterprise?
I am officially the deputy pencil lady. Basically, I support Caroline in everything that she does at work and at home.
What?
I don't know.
Well, Caroline, what do you do then?
I am the chief pencil lady. I do all the things that Caitlin doesn't do. I started the shop and I don't even know. What do? I don't even know.
We do a lot of the same things.
We do a lot of the same things. We're a team.
Before we even hear about the shop, let me ask, how do you guys know each other?
Yeah, it was like the greatest miracle that happened to either of us. I found the store kind of on accident. I was working in this neighborhood at a different business, and the day that I quit that working for that business, a friend of mine emailed me just a link to a Gothamist article about the shop, just because she thought it was something I was interested in. So I walked out of my old job into CW Pencil Enterprise. That was, I think, maybe 3 weeks old at the time.
Yeah, it had been, about a month.
Yeah.
It was about a month.
And Caroline was in there all by her lonesome, just talking to some customers. And while she was talking to some customers, she was like, it's getting really busy. I think I need to hire someone. And I was like, I need some extra part-time work. And I am, a big supporter of the entrepreneurial spirit. So I sent her an email the second I got home, pretty much. And she hired me on the spot. Luckily, it worked out for her.
Yeah, I was really desperate, and also, I obviously liked you too, but I really needed the help. I was really in over my head, and Caitlin walked in at exactly the right moment, and was very honest about eavesdropping in the email she sent me too. It was a great email.
What were your first thoughts when you first walked into the store, Caitlin?
The thing that hit me first, and this is the thing that a lot of our customers have expressed as well, was the smell. It just smacks you right in the childhood. It smells like a pencil box. It smells like pencil shavings. So it really strongly reminded me of being a kid, and just in a really wonderfully nostalgic way, because the store is also laid out very beautifully, and you can really tell that Caroline appreciated the object enough to give it some special treatment. So it just is really striking the first time you walk in. And I'm very romantic about nostalgic things like that. So it kind of immediately spoke to me just from the appreciation of it. I guess I've kind of always been a collector of art supplies, but I'd never really narrowed it down to anything so specific, and just to see it treated in that way really inspired me.
And Caroline, were you thinking about nostalgia? Were you thinking about trying to evoke those feelings when you first opened and designed the store?
Yes and no. That's something that I nostalgia is a really critical part of why I think adults especially love pencils, and why I love pencils, and why they kind of became my thing to begin with. But I think at some point, I was so involved in it that it didn't really occur to me, because it was just something that was part of who I was and what I was doing. Honestly, when I designed the shop and when I first started doing the buying for the shop, I was truly just doing what I knew how to do, and that was about it. I was very naive about the whole thing, to be honest, and I didn't really think a whole lot about how the customer would feel when they came into the store, except that I knew I wanted them to feel like they were someplace really special.
All right, well, let's keep going back in time then. When did you get into pencils, and what made you decide to open a pencil store? Actually, quick question before you answer that. Is this the only store dedicated to pencils? I mean, it's the only one in New York, right?
Most certainly. As far as we know, it's the only one in the world that's at least like a multi-brand store. Like Caran d'Ache and Faber-Castell have their own flagship stores. But yeah, as far as we know, we're the only one.
So this had never been done. What made you decide to do it?
I'd been collecting pencils for the vast majority of my life and grew up in a family with a very strong appreciation for office supplies.
What does that mean? What did your parents do?
My mom is an interior designer, and when I was a child, she worked from home and had her very messy drafting table in our dining room with just, like, pencils everywhere. It was, yeah, and she was always a real snob about what kind of pencils we took to school and, like, what kind of pencils she bought for our house and what kind of pencils she used for work. Yeah, and my dad was an engineer who, after my parents got divorced, would fill our Christmas stockings with office supplies, like not even like special office supplies, like just like stuff that he would pick from Staples. It kind of became his thing, like in our family. I think it was kind of like hilarious, like, yeah, new single dad doesn't know what to do about Christmas stockings, but he just filled our stockings with like just office supplies. And as I got older and traveled a lot, that was kind of like the thing that I always gravitated towards in foreign countries, is like, what is their most normal version of an office supply store like, and what kind of pencils do they stock there, what kind of paper clips do they have there. I think my interest in pencils comes more from like the office supply angle than like the art angle.
What did you find when you were traveling and you were looking at international office supply stores? What did you see that was different and stood out to you? Yeah,
well, they all these places have different brands. Like out in the U.S., especially in New York, we don't have a lot of really great, like, independent, family-owned office supply stores anymore. I feel like, especially in Europe, that's still very much a thing. I went to college in the U.K. and lived in London, and I lived in a primarily Indian neighborhood for a large majority of the time I lived there, and we had a couple of really great stationery shops that stocked Indian pencils, but also stocked British-made pencils and German pencils, like things like that were really normal to them, but that were completely foreign to me. I think that's interesting, like what each country's normal is. And so many of these, especially like smaller European countries, do make pencils. Nobody knows about them, though, because they just don't export because they don't need to.
So when was the moment when you decided, I'm going to make a place where people can discover all these things and open my own pencil store in New York?
It was at some point during like early college when I kind of was having a crisis and didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and I was kind of doing inventory of the things that I liked, the things that I was good at, the things that I like wanted for my future, and it kind of occurred to me that like this really simple object was the only thing that had kind of remained a consistent interest of mine, and I thought I got a little carried away thinking about like how could I capitalize on that, or how could I make that a career. And then I realized, well, there's not really any way that I could make a job out of pencils. And then I decided, well, what if I had a ridiculous shop that's like a world tour of every pencil ever made everywhere? And it became like this weird fantasy of a retirement job. And then I moved to New York and things didn't go as planned. And one day I just woke up and was like, here we go, let's do it and see what happens.
What did other people say when you told them you wanted to open a pencil store? What were the reactions like?
Very kind, but also very skeptical.
Right?
I could tell most of my friends and family, nobody flat out told me, like, you're crazy, you probably shouldn't do this. Everybody was kind of outwardly supportive, but I could tell that they were a little scared for me. Even my mom admitted a few months in, once she saw that it was going to be okay, that she was really worried.
Did you have an answer when people said they were worried, or did you just have this conviction in your head that it was going to work?
I felt like it was going to work. I thought, like, if I put enough of myself in this, I really think that anybody can make anything a thing if they just approach it the right way, and if they just like put enough love into it.
That would be a good subtitle for this podcast. Anyone can make anything a thing if they put enough love into it. It's definitely something we believe here at the Jeff Rubin Show. So let's talk about the store itself. First of all, I described it correctly. There is nothing there that is not pencil related, right? Every single thing in the store is about pencils. It's a pencil store.
Yeah, everything in the store is a pencil or a pencil accessory, as we like to say.
So what are the top... Do you have a top-selling item? Is there like a Big Mac that people come in and is ordered the most often?
We do have a couple things that that we sell a lot of for like interestingly different reasons. Like our bestseller for online orders is this 25-cent pencil made in Tennessee that is just the most like simple, plain, like almost like unassuming looking pencil, but they're actually really nice. People buy those by like the dozens. In the store, we actually have a pencil that we like to call the Gateway pencil, which it's called the Blackwing 602, and it's a reproduction of a very famous pencil. So people either come in and they've heard of it just because its reputation is so big, and the Palomino, the company behind it, has really grown and put a lot of marketing into it, so its reputation precedes it these days. Or they're drawn to the unusual look of it because it has a flat ferrule, the thing that holds the eraser to the end of the pencil. And there's a flat ferrule and an eraser that you can replace. So a lot of people come in and they're just like, whoa, that looks totally different than any pencil I've ever used. And they try that, and that becomes their like gateway into other good pencils.
How much does one of those cost?
$2 individually in store. Online, we sell them by the dozen for $22.
What is the most expensive, fanciest pencil you sell?
Oh, well, this answer changed recently, actually. The most expensive pencil we currently sell is $7.50 each, and they come in their own individual boxes that they kind of look like it should be like an eyeliner pencil or something. It's not. It's a graphite pencil that's made in Japan by Mitsubishi, and I don't know if you or your listeners know much about the pencil grading scale, but it's the way the pencil grading scale works. It's measured in H's and B's, and so an HB is the middle of the pencil grading scale. That's the same thing as a number 2 pencil, and so any softer it gets, it goes like B, 2B, 3B, 4B, etc. The higher the number, the more graphite content it has and the less clay it has in it. So it'll be darker, it'll be smoother, it'll be smudgier. And then the scale goes the other way with H's to describe a harder pencil. And so this particular pencil is a 10B. And Mitsubishi is the only company in the world who even make a 10B, because at that point it's like basically straight graphite and it's very, very, very fragile. So most companies just like don't even bother trying to make a 10B.
What would I use a 10B for? Like, would that be particularly good for an architect or a sketch artist, or is there someone who could particularly use a really fragile pencil?
It's like the opposite of what an architect would want. They're always looking for precision. This particular one is interesting because it's actually not meant to be a drawing pencil. This is a 10B writing pencil that is a particular type of pencil made only in Japan by a handful of companies that is made for practicing Chinese calligraphy. And the core of this pencil is very thick. It's meant to almost feel like a brush, which is why they have to make it like so smooth. It's weird because it's like really smooth but really strong at the same time. I don't know how they do it. It's a huge mystery. But it's really popular with people who draw on just like a really soft pencil, or a lot of people think like it's a really novel thing that it's a 10B pencil that's like painted gold and comes in this ridiculous box.
Yeah, it's very expressive. Mm-hmm. So you would use it. You wouldn't be looking for precision when you were using it. You would be looking to be kind of loose and sketchy, or
it like slips around the paper. It's so fun to use.
So if you had to give this pencil a number, or if you could give this pencil a number, and so I can compare it to a number 2 pencil, is this like a number 40 pencil or a number negative 12? Like, where does it go?
It's probably a negative number, because a number 1 is softer than a number 2.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it would be, a number 1 minus 10, that's a negative 9.
This is a negative 9 pencil.
It's a negative 9.
Why is it Why is number 2 the standard? That, obviously we all know we need them for Scantron tests and that kind of thing. Why is there a good reason number 2 is the standard, or is there like a number 2 pencil lobby, like the VHS lobby, just making it the thing?
That's a really good question. I'm not really sure, actually. The pencil grading scale came about... Well, it took a really long time to kind of establish, like, okay, this is the scale that we're going to follow in the U.S., and this is the scale we're going to follow everywhere else. Basically, like, the number 1, 2, 3, 4 scale is only a thing in the U.S. Everybody else uses the HB scale. And that happened, like, towards the late 1800s. And, like... Legend has it that it was actually Henry David Thoreau who came up with the 1, 2, 3, 4 whatever system. But I don't know why number 2 is the standard. I think because it's probably like that's probably like it's got to have something to do with like back in the day, like issues with graphite purity, and like that was probably like the best ratio of clay to graphite that was like a writable, erasable pencil.
Yeah.
And so that was like kind of the ideal for general use, so they made that the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know, the middle of the scale, I'm not sure.
It's equal parts hard and soft, so it's theoretically dark enough to make a visible mark on a paper, but it's not so dark that you lose the sharpness of it when you write with it. So it's like a number 2 is meant to be like the most balanced pencil.
Yeah. Like the weird thing too is that this pencil grading scale thing has been a thing for like over 150 years probably, and there still is like no international standard for like what makes an HB number 2 pencil. Like an HB number 2 pencil from Germany is going to feel maybe even like 3 or 4 grades different from like a Japanese HB number 2. Nobody's ever like decided like, okay, a number 2 pencil has to have this percentage of graphite and this percentage of clay and this percentage of everything else. It's kind of crazy.
I notice you guys keep talking about graphite and clay. Is there lead in pencils anymore? Was there ever lead in pencils?
There was never lead in pencils ever at all. That is like the most common myth about pencils. We do get customers emailing us and asking about lead poisoning. Pencils are actually manufactured mostly these days with non-toxic standards because pencils are largely marketed towards kids. The lead thing came about back when graphite was first discovered in England. They felt the properties were similar to lead and kind of like nicknamed it lead, and that has stuck around.
Yeah, graphite was discovered in England in the 1650s, approximately, and yeah, they called it black lead because they didn't know what else to call it. It took a surprisingly long time for them to even like figure out a name for it. It went through lots of incarnations. Like it took a long time for it to be understood chemically. Yeah, so that's where that comes from, and it just kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm. You said people email you asking you about lead poisoning. What else do people ask?
I mean, probably our most frequent inquiries are what pencil should I use for a certain application. Like we do a lot of recommendations for lefties.
Oh, so what's your lefty pencil recommendation?
Our lefty pencil recommendation is usually like a Camel pencil, right?
Well, yeah, like a Craft Design Technology pencil or a Desenho H is my go-to.
I kind of thought pencils, I'm a righty, so maybe I'm just being thoughtless about my lefty friends. I thought pencils were ambidextrous. What makes a lefty pencil a lefty pencil?
It's generally a less smudgy pencil. So some pencils have so going back to the clay thing, pencil cores are a mix of graphite and clay and usually some kind of binder like wax or polymer or different things like that. So depending on what mix a company has used to make the graphite core and like the quality of it, because quality really does matter when you're looking for a non-smudgy pencil. Depending on how they've manufactured it, some are just less smudgy than others. So if you can imagine a left-handed person like dragging their hand across a paper from left to right, they always end up smudging their work. So we look for pencils that are either hard enough, therefore have enough clay to not be smudgy, or like with Japanese pencils, they have a little bit of polymer mixed into them, which just kind of fixes them to the paper a little bit better.
What other recommendations do people ask you for? Architects, maybe? We mentioned architects. Like, what do you tell an architect?
The architect and drawing question is, I think, our trickiest question because everybody has a slightly different idea of what sketching means. Because some people want to do very precise drafts with like rulers and outlines and like need a very fine line to work with, where a lot of people when they're sketching want something with that makes a thicker, more expressive line, where some people want something in between. So those ones are like, that recommendation tends to get a little bit more specific towards what the person is looking for.
I had a lady in the shop this weekend who is a sculptor, and she realized that she was just tired of making really big things. She wants to make smaller things. So she came looking for her new medium, and she spent like an hour testing out pencils. She was very, very thorough, and she kept asking me what I thought the most three-dimensional pencil was.
Huh. Do you know what she meant by that?
Well, I think what she meant was that she wanted something that like has the appearance, like it easily has the appearance of being like 3D on a paper. I think she just wanted like the most dimensional, like the pencil that leaves the most dimensional mark possible.
And what did she end up with?
She actually ended up with one of those crazy Mitsubishi 10Bs. She ended up with a couple of really cool Portuguese water-soluble pencils that you can work into with the paintbrush, and they kind of get like melty and inky. She ended up with a couple of really hard pencils too. She ended up with like a good sampler of a lot of things, but she did buy a lot of like the really chunky, just like thick, like messy pencils. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd never had that question before though. What type of pencil leaves like a really dimensional mark?
Who comes to the store? Is there a type of person or a profession that goes in there?
We get that question a lot. The answer is a little simpler than you might think. It's mostly just people who have an appreciation for stationery or are just curious. It's not necessarily a person that uses pencils every single day of their life, though we do have a lot of customers that only use pencils. We've got a lot of tourists from all around the world that are just fascinated that we exist, basically.
How do they find out about you?
We've been really fortunate to have had press in a number of different countries. We actually just got this great, the South Korean magazine that we're in. And we've been, there's an Italian newspaper last year. There's been a few Japanese things that we've been in.
We're really popular in airline magazines, which actually brings in a lot of tourists. But yeah, we've had features in like newspapers all over the world. We've had a lot of features domestically, so we've been really lucky to have like tons and tons of press.
Is that something that people that you are actively working on, or is it people like me who hear there's a pencil store and are like, hey, I can make something out of that? That's really interesting.
It's generally the latter, that people discover us through something else and, want to, like, talk about it.
Yeah.
We've gone after a few pieces specifically, but mostly it's, we've been really fortunate that it's come to us. And our Instagram helps, too.
I feel like I'm getting a better understanding of some of the different dimensions one might consider when going pencil shopping. What about some of those pencil accessories? What erasers? You guys sell, separate erasers?
Yeah, we have a pretty wide variety of erasers, both just like the handheld kind and eraser caps that would go on the end of your pencil.
That'd be like a replacement?
Yeah, like those little like arrowhead-shaped caps that you had in...
Oh, yeah.
As like a kid, but like nicer versions of those.
So in the same way that the pencils I had as a kid were probably garbage because I was a kid and, I didn't think about it at all, and also I would have lost them anyway. Are the erasers that you guys sell, are they better than the erasers I had as a kid?
Yes.
What makes
Without a doubt.
What makes them better?
Well, for some reason, pencil companies put the worst erasers on the ends of pencils.
Like, very cheaply manufactured.
Or just, like, especially, like, probably when you were a kid, they were most definitely made out of natural rubber, which dries out eventually. So you might have been using just, like, crusty old rubber erasers.
Yeah, it gets hard and you erase, and it's just, like, making it pinker.
Mm-hmm. That's what it is, yeah. But there are still some people who make natural rubber erasers, or a lot of like synthetic rubber erasers. But these days, like most people prefer plastic erasers, which are supposed to be dust free, which is not true. But
it's less dust.
Yeah, the dust just kind of like balls up together, and they tend to be more effective erasers and a lot cleaner. But they don't work perfectly on all surfaces. You really have to pair your eraser to your pencil and your paper. It's like a wine pairing.
Well, paper.
Yeah.
we haven't even gotten to paper yet. Paper, I assume, it's part of there's really only two pieces of the equation, the pencil and the paper. So the paper has to matter, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys, what do you advise if I come in and I say, I'm just looking for a nicer paper than the one I'm used to, take notes on? What would you recommend?
We have a few, we're very, very picky about notebooks. We don't have a ton of brands that we carry. And the ones that we do carry, they're all very good with pencil. So after that, it's like, it kind of depends if you're looking for like something that's very portable and flat that you can stick in a backpack, if you want a spiral bound or a top bound, or things like that. There's a term we throw around about notebooks called a tooth, which has to do with like the grain of your paper. And pencil really likes toothy paper.
Not too toothy though, because then it
leaves gaps.
Yeah, like it ends up laying down too much graphite, and then it gets messy.
Yeah, the perfect one is probably the Baron Fig.
Yeah, Baron Fig makes perfect pencil notebooks. That's the notebook we use on our test station.
Sharpeners. How do you sharpen your pencils? Are we talking cranks? Electric? Is electric pencil sharpener sacrilege?
Yes.
No electric pencil sharpeners?
Nope.
What's the problem with them? They eat too much pencil too quickly?
Yes. That's actually exactly the problem, especially most modern ones. Back in like the 1970s, Panasonic made like the gold standard in electric sharpener. And if you can find one of those, like that's the only electric sharpener we would ever recommend.
Yeah,
right.
I think the ones now are just too cheap. Like you can't buy like replacement blades for a mechanical or an electric sharpener anyway, so you end up just having to throw them away when they get dull, which is something we really think is just very wrong with pencils. Like you're sharpening wood. Those blades get dull. They get dull actually faster than most people realize, and so it's just frustrating that you have to throw it away. And they're kind of just made to be disposable.
So what do you recommend then? I'm throwing away my electric pencil sharpener as we speak. What should I get instead?
Well, for starters, we actually stock a book called How to Sharpen Pencils by famous professional pencil sharpener David Reese.
Recently retired.
David Reese does a lot of things like that. Like
he does.
Yes.
I think that was the theme of his show, like how to do very simple things extremely well, right? That's like his thing. But I think probably his most famous book is How to Sharpen Pencils.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you stock that book. You recommend. I mean, I've never read the book. Obviously, like there's some novelty just to having a whole book about how to sharpen pencils. But as pencil experts, what's your take? Is the advice good?
I don't actually.
Have you not read it?
I've never read it all the way through.
Caitlin, you're fired.
Oh no! But it's very satirical. So as I brought it up, even in this conversation, it was more in jest than in this is how to sharpen pencils.
It is very truthful though. Like it gives you a variety of methods, and some of the advice is insane, but like it's. I mean, I agree with his opinions on how to sharpen a pencil. He very much is like he doesn't even like recommend that you always hand sharpen them, which is like really the purest way of doing it, just with the knife.
Yeah.
He gives a lot of advice
with a knife.
Yeah, with a knife. People do that. We've had people do it in our shop. One of the girls who works with us prefers to sharpen with a knife.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Do you sell pencil sharpening knives?
No, there's no such thing as like a knife made for pencil sharpening necessarily.
Gotcha. And you don't just sell regular knives So what is David Reese's recommendation? What do you recommend?
Well, we definitely tell people not to use electric sharpeners. We established that.
Yeah.
We sell mostly, we have a few hand crank sharpeners, which if you're sharpening mostly at home or at a desk will always be our recommendation. Yeah.
It just takes a lot less effort. It's a little bit tidier, and your point is very consistent with a hand crank sharpener.
And this is like the little thing like I used to have in grade school in my pencil box, right? And there's like a little plastic case to catch the shavings maybe.
No. That's the thing that you had in grade school that was attached to the wall.
No. I'm talking about the one I'd have in the pencil box. There's the wall one too.
Right.
I know what you're talking. That's like
a
the
hand
crank
sharpener is the wall kind.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that's what you recommend.
It's either affixed to a desk.
Not this little toy I had when I was a kid.
That is a blade sharpener. The kind that you're describing that's very portable that you can throw in a bag and it holds the shavings in.
Those are good or bad?
Like has a little like razor blade on it.
Yeah. We like those?
Those are blade sharpeners, and like the number one thing we tell people is like it almost like it does matter. Quality does matter, but the number one most important thing with a blade sharpener is it just has to be sharp.
Yeah, the quality of the blades matters 10 times more than the actual sharpener. Like, you could be using a plastic sharpener that looks like a goldfish, and if it has really good blades, you're way better off than buying like a stupid fancy sharpener.
Does that exist? A plastic sharpener that looks like a goldfish?
Maybe. I just made that up. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize that you do have to replace your blades, that they really don't last very long, especially if you're using it every day. So people come in and be like, help, my pencil sharpener just stopped working. And 9 times, actually probably 10 times out of 10, 100% of the time, the blades are just dull.
Where do you get replacement pencil sharpener blades? They're just regular blades?
It depends on the sharpener. A lot of them can't be replaced. Most pencil sharpeners are meant, or that type of sharpener, most of them are meant to be disposable. But there's a couple, like, nice German manufacturer pencil sharpeners that they make replacement blades for, and we carry a few different styles of replacement blades for sharpeners.
Yeah. They're sometimes interchangeable. Like, if you have a cheap sharpener you love, chances are you could probably find a replacement blade for it.
They tend to be sort of standard sized.
Yeah, and they're inexpensive too, and you get to use a really tiny screwdriver to screw them on. I love doing that for customers in the shop, like whipping out the tiny screwdrivers.
Yeah, it's like practically an eyeglass repair kit, and you're like just screwing these like little tiny things. You feel like it's, I don't know.
It's fun.
Like you're doing something sciencey.
Yeah.
Something handsy. Look at me with my screwdriver.
What about colored pencils? Children's toy, or do we stock those in the store too?
We do stock colored pencils. Colored pencils also have kind of a grading system the same way that graphite pencils do, and there's definitely different qualities. Colored pencils are usually described in like maybe 2 different categories, or do you think they're
firm and soft?
Yeah, there's what we consider to be school grade colored pencils, which are a little bit firmer, just because if you can imagine, like, very small children press very hard when they're learning to color. So they tend to be a little bit firmer. They're less prone to breakage.
Well, and they're cheaper to manufacture because they have less pigment in them.
Right.
That's a huge factor.
Right. And then there's artist quality colored pencils that are very, very richly pigmented. They will often have a light fastness rating, so you know, like, which pigments can stand the test of time, like in sunlight. And they tend to be a lot more richly pigmented. They're usually a lot more expensive.
Yeah, they're either oil based or water based. They're either permanent or water soluble. Gets a little complicated.
Yeah, but we do have all of the we have all our bases covered. We don't carry a lot of colored pencils, but we do have a couple different types of artist quality colored pencils and a couple different sets of school grade.
Yeah.
What about mechanical pencils? Do you take those seriously, or is that something? Is that another thing?
There's actually a chapter in David Reese's book about mechanical pencils. It's 1 sentence long.
Not even. It's like 2 words long.
Yeah.
Punctuated.
Yeah.
It just says the title of the chapter is Mechanical Pencils, and then on the page it just says "are bullshit," period. Nothing else on the page.
Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that for, like, very precise things, like illustration and, you know, like even architectural design.
No.
Like, no?
They're just being lazy at that point.
Really?
Yeah, but the other problem, too, is that, like, mechanical pencil lead, there are a couple of good brands that make mechanical pencil lead, but they're mostly bad leads. Like, really, the graphite is the only quality of a mechanical pencil that is similar to a wood case pencil. Otherwise, they have nothing in common. And even so, it's not that easy to find really good mechanical pencil lead. If you do a thing that requires mechanical pencil, you might as well just invest in, like, just a better regular pencil. I don't know. I hate them.
Do you carry them in the store?
No.
That must be fun, owning your own store and just, like, not carrying products that you don't like.
Well, it's not that I don't like them.
Questions easier.
Yeah, people come in, they ask if we sell them. We just say no. We don't, but we'll tell you where to get them. Yeah, we don't hate them. I feel like that was like the second, maybe like the second article ever written about the shop. It was an article that was it was in print for Bloomberg, for Bloomberg Business Week, and they kind of twisted my words a little bit and made it sound like I really, really, really just hate mechanical pencils and just don't approve of them at all, which isn't entirely true. I was very embarrassed. But there's some really awesome mechanical pencils out there. There's just one that's really popular called the Kuratoga. And you can buy it in New York. They sell it at Kinokuniya, which is a Japanese bookstore. You can find them easily online, but it does this thing where it can like sense when you've lifted the pencil from the page, and it turns the lead ever so slightly, so you always have a sharp point.
Ooh, that's pretty
cool. Yeah, if I were to use one, that's the one I would use, probably.
That sounds expensive. It's got, like, sensors and stuff in it.
It's not really. There are many, many versions of it. They range anywhere from, like, I don't know. I haven't looked for a while. I looked them up on JetPens a couple months ago. Anywhere from, like, $5 to probably, like, $20.
Now, I'm afraid I'm about to upset you with an insane question, and I hope you won't hang up on me. But what about pens?
Oh, we actually love pens.
There's a time and a place for pens.
One of our distributors actually came by yesterday and gave Carolyn and I both fountain pens, and we were like, "What?"
Really nice fountain pens. We were kind of excited. I use pens to sign checks.
Yeah.
You can't sign a check in pencil, I don't think, can you?
I feel like I could make an argument that you can sign it in like World War I era copying pencil, but that's a conversation for another day.
I mean, I don't know. I guess the bank would probably cash it. It just seems wrong. I guess, like, the fear is, like, someone will come and erase it and write, like, $1 million.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how much you trust the person you're giving the check to.
Yeah.
So pens are okay. You've got nothing against pens, but the focus is pencils.
The focus is wooden pencils.
Yeah.
Specifically.
What else do they make pencils out of? I guess the mechanical pencils.
Mechanical pencils, yeah.
I mean, we do have a couple pencils that are made out of paper instead of wood, but paper comes from wood, so it doesn't really
same thing
take us too far off the path.
No, I think that counts.
We like stay away from the really cheap quality, like the really, really crappy like plastic wood composite pencils that were popular in like the 1990s.
Oh, I'm remembering I had this kind, it was a mechanical pencil that like sort of was camouflaged like a regular pencil, like it was pencil yellow, and when you twisted the tan piece where the lead was, you remember those?
Papermate makes those still. You can still get those.
Those could not have been good, right?
They suck. I was really upset maybe about 2 months ago. I came home from work, and my boyfriend lives with me, and I found, like, on the floor in our bedroom, one of those was on the floor, and I thought someone was playing a cruel joke. Turns out he brought it home from work and accidentally left it there thinking that I wouldn't notice.
Unbelievable.
I threw it away.
In the garbage where it belongs.
Yeah.
Would you have any, like, novelty pencils? Like, what about a giant pencil, you know? Something like that.
I think our most novelty pencil is actually, it's called the no smoking pencil. It says no smoking on the side, and it's a little cigarette.
So the pencil is a cigarette?
Yeah,
it looks like a cigarette. It's the exact right size, and it's impeccably finished. It's a very well-made pencil. They're very funny. We have a lot of people buy them to use like with costumes, so they don't have to buy a real cigarette. They can just like buy a pencil instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one's we're very particular about the novelty pencils we sell. We have another one that's heart-shaped. Yeah. It's really popular, but we will sell novelty pencils if they are actually high quality. Like if they're not, they can't just be like a really cheap, stupid pencil. If they're high quality and if their design isn't like too silly.
I'm curious, like when the distributor comes by and there's like a hot new pencil that you haven't had a chance to try, and you get a new pencil. What do you guys do? Like, how do you personally take it for a spin and see what it does?
Well, usually there's lots of squealing.
Yeah.
We usually freak out when somebody brings something new to us.
Yeah, I have to smell it.
Yeah. That actually doesn't happen too often. Like, not a lot of people surprise us with wooden pencils anymore. Yeah.
But forget that it's a surprise. Just I'm just curious, like, when you want to see what a new pencil can do, do you take it out and write something? Do you draw something?
Yeah.
I write my name over and over again, and sometimes draw like a slice of pizza. That's always what I go towards. I draw a slice of pizza.
Yeah, we just basically give it a spin on a piece of paper and see what it feels like when it's on paper, if it's like super scratchy or super smooth. And definitely sharpening is important. Yeah, it has to sharpen well.
It has to sharpen well. It has to erase well too. We also do a lot of comparing to other pencils. I have a feeling like if you're a fly on the wall and you're listening to us talk about a new pencil, and we just throw around like model numbers and names, like it probably almost sounds like we're talking about cars or something.
Yeah.
It probably sounds kind of crazy to an outsider when we're comparing a pencil.
When do you give up on a pencil? Like, there's got to be a point when it stops being practical to use. You can't use it all the way down to the nub, right?
Oh, you can. There are devices for that. Pencil extenders.
A pencil extender? You must sell pencil extenders at the store.
I very rarely completely quit a pencil when I'm using it. It's got to be complete crap. Like, if it keeps breaking every time I sharpen it and it's not the sharpener's fault... or if it is just like annoyingly gritty, or if it's like there's some really cheaply manufactured ones that feel like almost too slick on the paper, like they feel kind of oily.
They have too much wax in them usually.
Yeah.
I threw away one a couple of days ago. That was one that we marked out of inventory. I learned for a good reason, because it wasn't well centered. It was like so off center that when I sharpened it, the wood just went all the way up the side, and there were maybe only like, even when it was like at full peak sharpness, like 3 millimeters of usable graphite before it hit wood. And that got annoying because I had to keep sharpening it, so I threw it away.
I can remember when I was a kid, like writing, and sometimes the lead, or not the lead, as I've now learned, pencil nib busted. But, just the point or the tip, the graphite, the clay, it all breaks. It's like a clean break, just like an inch or two deep. And you got to, like, take that thing to the sharpener and, like, really knock it down a few inches to get back to where you were. Does that happen? Is that a quality of a poor pencil, or does that happen with good pencils, too?
Not really.
I mean, pencils are more fragile than people think. So sometimes it's just that it's been dropped and it's shattered on the inside, but generally like a high quality pencil is what's called bonded. So it's when you make a pencil, imagine we're making a sandwich, right? It's 2 slices of wood with graphite in the middle. And the 2 slices of wood are glued together, and if the pencil is bonded, the core is also glued all the way up the pencil to the slats. If it's not bonded, the core is kind of like, there's like little dots of glue, but it's not glued all the way up the center. So when you drop it and the graphite breaks, it's like nothing really holding on to it on the inside. So that's generally a mark of a cheap pencil.
Yeah, we don't get many complaints about pencils being broken here.
Right.
There are a couple, like any pencils that are like extra fragile, you're going to have more of a problem with. Like a lot of that happens a lot with colored pencils. Like cheap colored pencils are so breakable. Like you drop it once and it shatters. But pencil cores, the way that you make them is you mix all the things together and then you have to fire it in a kiln like you're firing ceramic. So if you think about it like a ceramic object, it is very breakable, and the wood the wood basically just functions to protect it. It's like the bubble wrap of for the pencil core.
How many of the pencils in your store look like a garden variety yellow pencil that we all imagine when we close our eyes and picture a pencil, and how many are like have some aesthetic crazy flourish?
Actually, we carry, what would you say, like maybe a dozen different types of yellow pencils?
Yeah.
More than that?
There aren't a ton of yellow pencils that we have, because that's like very much an American thing to paint your pencils yellow and stick an eraser on the end. And there are only 3 pencil companies left in the U.S., and only 2 of them make yellow number 2 pencils. So we stock all of the ones that both of those companies have, which are quite a few varieties. And then there's one from Switzerland, one from Japan,
one from
Denmark.
Denmark, and then Norris.
The Norris almost doesn't count.
Almost doesn't count.
It has stripes on it. There really aren't as many as you'd think. We don't stock Ticonderogas.
What's the type? You said that I'd expect that. Is that like a standard pencil?
Oh, people do expect that. The Ticonderoga is probably like...
It's the most well-known pencil in the United States.
Yeah.
They do market themselves as the world's best pencil.
Not true.
No, if you look at school supply lists, that's even like what teachers will put on school supply lists is a dozen Ticonderoga number 2s. And that's the like what permeates is like the classic pencil, because it's a yellow pencil with a green and yellow ferrule and a pink eraser, and that's like what people think of when they think of a pencil. And they're honestly, I mean, the manufacturing quality these days is terrible.
Yeah.
So we don't stock them.
Even like 6 or 7 years ago, they were a great pencil, but they moved their production outside of the U.S. fairly recently. So they only recently started being bad pencils. But that's what you find if you like go to Staples or Walmart or anywhere like that, Target.
We do, yeah. So we tend to stay away from like what you would find at a CVS or an Office Depot.
Do you know the origins of that tradition of having yellow pencils in America? Because it seems kind of arbitrary.
Yeah. I'm like, does Caroline want to tell it? There's a chapter in the book.
It is like, is it a whole chapter? It's a huge chunk of a chapter.
Of what book?
I wrote a book about pencils.
Oh my God! How is this just coming up?
Oh, I don't know.
I gotta do my research better. That's on me. That's on me.
It came out. It came out fairly recently, like within the last month. In the U.S., it's called "The Pencil Perfect: The Untold Story of a Cultural Icon." Published by Gestalten in Germany. It's very recently in stores in the U.S. and it's available on Amazon, and it's meant to be like a very anecdotal like history of the pencil from the 16th century to today. And there is like half of a chapter on why pencils are yellow, and it's pretty interesting. It happened in the late 1800s. A pencil company in Europe called L&C Hardtmuth, a family-owned pencil company, started making a new drawing pencil, and they were pretty new to the game. But this was like the beginning of like, I guess like the heyday of pencils, the late 1800s, like 1880s, I would say, where a lot of great pencils were starting to be made in Europe. Like it was when people were finally like really figuring out how to make a good pencil.
Trying to finesse.
Yeah. And at this period of time in history, a good pencil was not painted. And the reason for that is that if you paint, the assumption was that if you were painting a pencil, it was because there was something to hide. That the wood grain was bad, or that the quality of the wood just was inferior, that it wasn't joined together very well. And so any high quality pencil wasn't painted. And so the Hardtmuths came along, and at the World's Fair in Paris debuted a very controversial pencil called the Koh-i-Noor 1500, named after the Koh-i-Noor diamond. And they painted this pencil yellow, 14 coats of paint to be exact, and dipped the end of the pencil in gold, like actual like gold. And it was a very expensive pencil. I think it was like 3 or 4 times more expensive. It sold individually of any pencil on the market, and was made even more expensive because it was sold in like a really beautiful tin by the dozen. They were a polygrade pencil, so they were one of the first pencils to have like a full range of pencil grades. They were drawing pencils. And the reason why they painted those yellow is because at the time, it was considered that the best graphite in the world was coming from China. And in China, the color yellow symbolizes wealth. It symbolizes royalty. And so the idea was that they were going to paint the yellow, the pencil yellow, to indicate that it was made out of like this super high quality Chinese graphite. And it didn't really catch on in Europe. It wasn't until they made a U.S. debut at the World's Fair in Chicago, the infamous World's Fair in Chicago. They set up a little booth there, brought these pencils here, and like American pencil makers just like freaked over this pencil. It became like an instant phenomenon, so much so that the L&C Hardtmuth Pencil Company set up a subsidiary in the U.S. almost immediately, and also very shortly after that just changed their entire company name to Koh-i-Noor. And so a lot of like the younger American pencil companies started making their pencils yellow to kind of imitate the Koh-i-Noor 1500. That's the story. There are lots of the thing about pencil history is that there's not a lot of like documented truth. So based on what I know and what I've pieced together, that's the story I choose to believe.
Is there a country, I feel like we've talked a lot about pencils coming from other countries, pencil traditions coming from other countries. Is there a country who, in your opinion, has the best pencil game?
I like to tell people that you could make a strong argument for Switzerland or Japan. Because our best-selling, not our best, I think our best quality pencils are Japanese manufacturer or from Caran d'Ache specifically in Switzerland. Caran d'Ache in particular has been making pencils for over 100 years. And we've been to their factory. Like, the precision that they put into their manufacturing process is incredible. But then Japanese pencils, just Japanese culture in general has a real strong appreciation for stationery and for like the minutia, the details and the precision and the quality of just their everyday objects. That their pencils are excellent. They're designed gorgeously, and they're always, well centered, very smooth graphite. Just really great.
Really, really weird design details.
Yeah.
When you guys think about the next few years of pencils, are there any pencils coming out or pencil technologies coming out that make you excited about the future of pencils?
It's hard to say because the pencil is... There's not really much that can be improved upon, like, for the pencil as it is right now. Because as far as, like, manufacturing standards go, like, the same things are always going to matter. The quality of the graphite matters, the quality of the milling process matters, and the quality of the material holding the pencil matters. So, and that's, like, cedar is the best wood for pencils, and... most of the companies have figured out their, like, perfect recipe for graphite and clay and binder combinations. So we don't really feel like we'll see a ton of innovation in like how a pencil is made. I'm just like, maybe dreaming of the day that you can write with pencil on a paper and it like automatically like translates it into the computer. But I think that might have more to do with like the paper than the pencil.
Yeah, that's
or maybe graphite will, because there's such a thing as a test scoring pencil that has artificial graphite in it that is electronically sensitive. So maybe there's like something to be done with that technology where,
I think there is.
I'm like imagining.
There's gotta be.
Have you ever used a Wacom tablet or any sort of computer drawing tablet?
Yeah.
I'm just curious as someone who lives with pencils, like what your thoughts are on that technology.
Actually, we have one in the office, and we have a girl named Meredith who works for us, who's an illustrator who does illustrate in pencil, but primarily uses like a pencil, like a filter on Photoshop to do all of her illustrations on a Wacom tablet.
It's so weird to use. My handwriting is a lot of like our branding and like the graphic things that we use. It's my handwriting, and I had to learn how to use that thing. It is so hard. I have so much respect for people who work in Illustrator all day and have to use those things because it was impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like its own tool and its own medium in a way.
Yeah.
What about the future of the pencil store? Do you have any plans for the business?
I think our plan is to just continue growing our knowledge, growing our
global repertoire.
Our online store, our, product range. We don't really have much interest in opening another store. Our one store is kind of perfect, and I just think it would be really hard to replicate with the amount of integrity we expect from it in another place. And as we've had a lot of really wonderful offers, and we've had a lot of people who have been really enthusiastic about like running one of our shops someplace else. But I don't think it's something that we'll do, at least not in the near future. But who knows? We've had a pretty wild 2 years. We've only been open for 2 years, and all these crazy things have happened. So who knows what's going to happen next?
We already had somebody build our dream pencil for us.
Yeah.
So
what's your dream pencil?
So we work with the Swiss company we mentioned, Caran d'Ache, and came to them a while ago, almost 2 years ago. No, not quite that long. Maybe over a year ago.
Oh, way more than that. Yeah. I've been bugging them about this since we first developed a relationship with them.
Yeah. Where we said that we wanted a pencil that was half graphite and half red pencil. Because it's really, really common to find pencils that are half red, half blue colored pencil. The half graphite, half red colored pencil thing exists in like Colombia, but they're so cheaply manufactured and hard that it's almost not worth it.
Yeah, they're not very nice. They're made for accountants.
Yeah.
But only in Latin America. It's very weird.
Yeah.
It's a type of pencil that just doesn't really exist.
So we came at them and we were like, if you build it, we will come. We went to them with this idea of a really high quality, half graphite, half red pencil. And it took us a little while to convince them to make something totally new. Like, this is outside of their normal realm of manufacturing. And then we had to learn all these fun things about, like, the seasons in which they make graphite, because they couldn't just, like, stop production and, like, make it right away, because they only make graphite a few times a year. And yeah, that was pretty amazing.
That does sound amazing. Can people check it out if they come to the store?
Yeah. And it's on our website. It's a pretty awesome pencil. It's called the Editor, because it's meant to be used like, well, what I wanted it for personally was because I spend a lot of time writing lists and organizing my planner and that sort of thing. And I always carry a red pencil because I like to just have the option of having a color to, like, make a really bold note or just, like, scribble something out or, like, check things off my list. And I just thought I consider myself a pencil minimalist. I don't like to carry a lot of pencils. If I can have only one, I much prefer that. And so that I like the idea of that, because then you just have to flip it over. You don't have to have pencils. It's good because if you're editing something or, like, marking something up, or, like, if you're a teacher and you are writing notes and also, like, grading something, it's useful for many reasons, not just for editors, we think.
Mm-hmm. There's this whole world of pencils that people like we have never experienced. If they're in New York, they can come to the store, check them out and experience. If not, is all this stuff available online? You saw all this stuff online too?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the website? How can people find it?
It's cwpencils.com.
cwpencils.com. And should people follow you on social media and that sort of thing too?
Yeah, absolutely. We take great pride in our Instagram. And Caroline particularly takes a lot of pride in her Twitter.
I just learned how to use Twitter.
On Instagram, we are at CW Pencil Enterprise. On Twitter, we're at CW Pencils.
Go follow them online, shop online, come to New York, visit the store, buy some pencils. It is a cool thing that does not exist anywhere else, and you guys made it exist, and it's going really well. So congratulations, and thanks for coming by and telling us about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
That was a HeadGum podcast.